So many frogs down here by the river. Can you see him? How about now? Can you see him? There he is, hiding down there. It's a cool looking one. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today I've got another 5 things that you need to know about forage to help you catch more bass. And I am in upstate New York right now, and I gotta tell you guys, the frogs at night and in the morning are singing to my ears. It is a chorus of bullfrogs every night, and it's pretty awesome. So having said that, we're going to talk about frogs and how you can catch more bass by understanding the life cycle of a frog. This is one of my favorite species. It is something that I've actually done a little bit of research on back in college, and specifically I'm going to talk about the bullfrog, but a lot of this does equate over to other forms of frogs like leopard frogs and various things. But the bullfrog is a great forage species for bass, and one of the reasons it's that way is because it is all over the planet, not just our country, all over the world. Guys, the bullfrog has been introduced in lots of different countries all over the place because it's such good table fare, and they procreate so quickly that they have been spread to a lot of different countries to feed local populations. You know, there's a lot of countries that have them now that actually consider them invasive species because they were brought by other people back to the country, and they've taken off, and they're, you know, kind of doing harm to some of the local insect populations and different ecology that they're in at that point. But guys, pretty much anywhere in the United States at this point, bullfrogs have been spread to. They originally were more eastern half of the country, but at this point they've been spread throughout most of the country, so they are all over the place and throughout the world, like I said. So you need to know that because they really are a good forage base for a lot of different predators, not just fish populations, but, you know, raccoons and different mammals as well will eat them, including ourselves. A lot of you out there probably like to eat frog legs. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and the first thing I want to mention with respect to the bullfrog, is what their coloration looks like. And I know this is something simple, but the reason I'm pointing this out, guys, is because if you go to the store right now and look at the frog selection out there, there are so many different color combinations that have nothing to do with frogs, which shows us that when we're fishing frogs, a lot of the times we're not actually trying to mimic a frog. But if you truly want to mimic a frog with your bait, then you should be looking for a bait that has a white belly with usually some form of like brownish spots, kind of some light hues or blotches on the bottom. There are some excellent color combinations out there by some of the companies now that are trying to mimic bullfrogs and leopard frogs. So you can find it, and if you truly are trying to mimic those species, then you should find one with a white belly. I think it just goes to show us again that a lot of times lures are made to catch the anglers, and if a color is really cool looking, we'll buy it. And you know what, guys, it doesn't mean it's not going to work. It may work because it matches other hatches, and it may work just because it's so completely different that the fish want to eat it because they've never seen a pink frog before. But you need to know truly the correct belly color, and that's all that really matters to me, because that's what the fish are going to be seeing when they're looking up at your frog, is a whitish belly. So that's the number one thing. The second thing is, you know, and this goes back to most forage, you want to know what their life cycle is, what their productive cycle is. So with a bullfrog, bullfrogs mate in the early part of the summer. So Usually throughout the country, you're going to be looking anywhere from like May to June. And it's usually a long, several month process. Like some frogs go early, some frogs go late, some males, I believe, mate many times throughout that period. But the spawning cycle is a several month long cycle. And when they're in their mating process, that's when they're most likely going to be back in their swampy areas, the shallow pad fields, the bulrushes. That's truly their mating grounds, are the shallow swampy areas. So what's funny with that is that's when our best frog fishing is. So you're talking about like the months of, we're going to say like May through like July. That's kind of the prime frog mating period throughout the country. And that's also our best frog fishing. And I think a lot of times, not only is it our best frog fishing because the frogs are in those swampy areas, they happen to be in a lot of areas where the bass spawned and the bass are guarding fry. Well, what is one thing that likes to eat fry? You got it, guys, the bullfrog. So it's natural for a bass to want to eat the bullfrog because it's attacking their fry. So that is one reason why our frog fishing is best in the early part of the summer. After the bass are spawning, it all lines up with when the frogs are predominantly in their marshy areas as well. So guys, it's not everything lines up for a reason, and that's one of the best things and the coolest things I think about frog fishing is, a lot of times it's because the frogs are trying to get back at the bull, or the bass are trying to get back at the bullfrogs, just like they're after bluegill who are, coming and raiding their nest. It's a crazy cycle of life right there. So you need to know that's when they mate. So what happens after they mate? Well, the frogs lay their eggs and the eggs hatch into tadpoles. So the next thing you need to know is that the tadpoles, which will be in a tadpole state, depending where you're at in the country, for anywhere from a couple months to several years, guys. It's not uncommon to have tadpoles that are in a tadpole phase for multiple years, and it all usually has to do with water temperature. Up in my part of the country, you're usually talking about a 2-year span. They call them 2-year tadpoles because that's how long it takes for a bullfrog tadpole to go from a tadpole phase to a true frog phase. So you need to be aware of that. That tadpoles play a much larger part of the food cycle than most people think. So depending on where you're in the country, down south, you could be talking 3 or 4 months before they evolve into a frog. But there are a lot of tadpoles in that tadpole phase. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing has to go along with the tadpoles again. And that is simply where the tadpoles go. So once the eggs have turned into tadpoles, the best location for tadpoles is going to be in a gravel, hard bottom area. They do not necessarily prefer the swampy areas. They prefer shallow gravel rock. Basically, that's what they're looking for the most. So when they find that I guess is where they feel the most comfortable, probably because there's less things that will eat them in super shallow gravel than there would be if they were back in their swampy areas where everything lives. And that's where they go for the first, several months. And then once they develop more, they will actually go deeper into gravel, which again is one reason why you see tadpoles a lot of times in 4 or 5 foot of water. So there is no way you can tell me that those tadpoles are not a primary forage species at that point. I mean, I've seen it on so many lakes in Wisconsin, actually throughout the country, where you see tadpoles in 4 or 5 foot of water, and they're such a fat, delicious thing to eat that I'm sure the bass eat them like it's nobody's business. It's probably one of their favorite things to eat. And when they're in a tadpole phase for multiple years, guys, there's lots of opportunity for them to get eaten there. So that's the fourth thing. The fifth thing is, what do frogs eat? Will that help you locate where the frogs are going to be? My answer to that is, well, guys, they eat everything. So we can't narrow it down and say, well, frogs are going to be here because they're eating minnows. Well, they do eat minnows. They also eat insects. They eat crayfish. They eat baby snakes. They'll eat whatever they can get their hands on. So they're going to be located everywhere at pretty much all times. And because of that, And I think we just got a sturgeon jumping on camera. They follow me everywhere, guys. I'm in New York right now, not at home. So the point being, bullfrogs eat everything. They're going to be all over the place. It would not be uncommon to find them sitting on a log, sitting on a rock, sitting in some grass, sitting in lily pads. They'll be everywhere. So it's never a bad time to try to mimic a bullfrog. The bass will eat them. Most fish will eat them. Get out there, buy yourself some frogs, throw it around. 1 or 2 explosions will make your day. I'm telling you, it's one of the most fun ways to fish. So I hope this was helpful, guys. If it was, click the like button, share it on your social media pages, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thanks for tuning in. We got more tips and tricks coming out every day.